Good evening, and welcome to the October 22nd, 2014 Conservation Commission hearing. If you have electronic devices, phones, pagers, that type of thing, please silence them. During the hearing, I anticipate people wanting to speak about projects. I'm more than happy to have you do that. When you go up to the podium and identify yourself, that's how we're going to do it, just so that we can get everything on the record. And we'll take motions and seconds and all this, and it may seem like I'm avoiding the audience as far as participation. I'm not. It's just how we kind of roll through it. There's going to be IDAs first and some other things before that, and then we'll have the notices of intent. So again, if you'd silence your electronic devices, and welcome, and onward. First on the agenda is to vote minutes of October 8th, 2014.
We already did that last week.
Thank you, Susan. That's why you are who you are. Next is October 15th, 2014. I'm waiting with bated breath. We can vote them next week as well.
I make a motion to continue the minutes till next week.
And we will.
Second.
Motion and a second to continue them till next week. And there we go. Next is request to continue a determination of applicability. This is the Town of Falmouth, 154 Blacksmith Shop Road, Falmouth, Mass. For continuance.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the Town of Falmouth would like a continuance until October 29th.
So moved.
Second.
That's Mary's motion, Russell's second, and that's the 29th. Is there any discussion on the board? Is there any discussion on the audience? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Next is 24 Racing Beach Ave, Falmouth, Mass.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until October 29th.
So moved.
Second.
Again, Mary's motion, Russell's second. Any other discussion on the board? Is there any discussion on the continuance in the audience? Seeing none, I call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Next is request for determination of applicability. This is the lesser of the permits that we'll be listening to tonight. An RDA, you want to hear a negative determination. Negative determination allows you to go on with the project because that has been reviewed by staff. Staff makes a recommendation to us and we vote on the project. So a negative determination is what you'd like to hear. If there's a positive that is received, then that means it's a different type of permitting. A notice of intent would be required. First is 187 T-Ticket Path, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to vista prune and to remove 2 dead black oaks.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the staff has reviewed the project. We're recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved. Second.
Michael's motion. Mary's second. Is there any other discussion on the board? Is there any discussion in the audience about this project? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Next was the 24 Racing Beach, which was continued to October 29th. That puts us right into the 300 Committee, Rydell Mount Drive, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to reestablish and reroute an existing trail, remove debris and invasive plants, and to install an informational kiosk.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the staff has reviewed the project. We are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved. Second.
Okay, and before we do the call for the vote, the young man that's doing this has got some information for us.
My name is Ryson Ferris. I'm a Life Scout in Troop 40 Falmouth. Some of you may have seen me here before for the Bike Path Project. So essentially what this project is the reestablishment of an existing trail surrounding a wetland, a white cedar swamp actually in...
Could you speak louder, please?
Yeah. The reestablishment of a trail around a white cedar swamp. So essentially it's been overgrown for a few years now. There's no dumping signs, but there's continued dumping there as well. The reason that we want to reestablish this trail is because many of these unique environments have been clear-cut in order to make the cranberry bogs in Massachusetts. So essentially, it would just be upkeep of the trail and the re-establishment of a different section in order to kind of steer people away from the wetland in order to prevent any damage or anything to the environment.
If I can, I received a call just to bring some of the board members up to speed yesterday afternoon, and there was a publication in the paper that was circled, and some people had some curiosities about the activities that he is proposing. I see it as getting more information about it and knowing what the activities are and why he's doing it. I think it would be a great comfort level to the residents in that area. And we had a brief discussion moments ago that if we were able to have an on-site so that he can alleviate the concerns that I was receiving yesterday, and that we do identify it as an important feature in that neighborhood that is something that doesn't exist everywhere. That there is value in having a trail there and being able to see what it is and appreciate what it is, also help alleviate the dumping.
Right.
Just to reiterate what we had discussed earlier, there's no proposed parking, which was one of the concerns. It's a very residential area. It's dead ends on both ways around the swamp. And so I think it was more of a curiosity and part of it not being a butter notified on type of things and just unaware of it. And I know that you've had your challenges in the past with these things, and you could earn your Eagle Scout just on that. And what I would hope is that, and we don't want to hinder this because I know there is a finite as far as your timeline is concerned. I would like to think that we could take a continuance of this, even though we know it's a negative determination for what staff has, but before we vote on it, just to be able to alleviate any of the concerns, and it makes it that much more strong comfort level in that neighborhood, because that's literally the people around there.
Definitely.
And I assume you're amenable to that.
Yep.
Excuse me, comment?
In one moment, when he's done with his presentation, if we have a couple people who want to talk about it, that's fine, but we'll have you come up and identify yourself at the podium. Are you all set for right now?
I'm all set for right now.
Could I just ask what your proposed timeline is?
Essentially, I'm just trying to get this done as soon as possible. I turn 18 on March 25th of this year, or next year, sorry. And that's it's just when I need to fulfill all my Eagle Scout requirements before I turn 18, or else it's not available anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Would you like to come up and identify yourself, please? Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
No. I'm Patricia Hopkins Joyinka. I live at 56 Dove Cottage Road, and I'm an abutter. And I'm also a member of the 300 committee, and I was there when they were doing some cleanup at that particular area. But I've lived there since 1980, which is before he was born, I'm sure. And I'm not aware of there really being a path that was around there. Maybe Mr. Patterson knows, but you're not reestablishing a path because there never was one. And certainly, I'm sure some work could be done to maybe alleviate some of the problem, and certainly the dumping does exist in a way, but as an abutter, I wouldn't want much of a change made.
And I think that's what I heard as well.
Yeah.
But this project is one of an informational base to it. It's not to try to make another bike path type of adventure. This is a more subdued, because of where it is. It's something that is been scaled down so that he can identify what the resource is. You can't really go inside of it, so it would be on the outer edge of it. And it wouldn't, when you say trail, if you can answer this for me.
Can I just, also there's a small private plot which is sort of part of that whole circle. So he'd have to be limited, I think, to the 300 committee section.
And yes, he would.
Yeah.
Yes, he would. It would have to be that.
Which is
Yes.
quite small.
If you can explain what the size trail and such.
Yeah. So the trail, me and Jack and Mark Kasperzik of the Concom actually walked the site a few weeks ago, and the trail is, as you get deeper into the wetland, there's definitely a noticeable trail, but from either of the entrances, it's very overgrown. It's very hard to distinguish. We went and identified all of the markers of the property lines in order to make sure that this project wouldn't interfere with anybody else's land, anything like that. And essentially, we would not be doing any extensive cutting of the area. We would simply be clearing overhead brush over an existing path and rerouting a small section of the path in order to make sure that nobody damages the wetland by stepping in it or walking alongside it.
So it'd be handwork. You wouldn't be taking a gravely down in there. It'd all be handwork.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get some more questions for you, if you'd like to come up. No one can deny that you have earned every moment in this room.
My name is Helen Goodwin, and I'm a butter to this area. My backyard goes right up to one of the possible paths that is going to be refurbished. I talked to Jack last week, and I don't quite understand. Is this working?
Yes, it is. And you won't hear it in here. That's for the TV at home.
Oh, okay. Hi, Mom. The path that goes behind my house, behind my property, is, I'd say, at least 80% of the time underwater. It's a swamp, and the path is swampy, so that I'm not so sure how the Boy Scouts are going to remedy that water there. Sometimes it's dry, like this summer it was dry, and you can see from one end of Rydal Mount up to the other end, you can actually see through. But most of the time, and I've lived here 10 years, it's wet. It's really wet, and in order to cut through that section, you have to go up on my yard. So even though I love the Boy Scouts and I love the 300 committee, I don't want people cutting through my yard.
And as proposed, that's not what he's proposing. He's not proposing to have anybody go in your yard. What he's proposing is to do an activity on the 300 committee's property.
Yeah.
And what that's going to do, and I'm glad that I walked around there last night.
Oh, well, I didn't see you.
I didn't go in your yard. The activity that he's promoting is more of an informative thing. It really isn't to try to go through the entire swamp. And there's gonna be areas where, if Marcus Brizik, our agent that works for us,
Yeah,
has gone to the site with him, Mark is an extremely diligent person when he does markings. And if he felt anywhere in this project that there was something that was gonna compromise or was not done in a correct way, he would let us know, and he would not have given the determination that he did. There's a very strong, in his professional opinion, the activities there are legitimate, that he doesn't, that he would not need to have any further permitting, that the activities he was requesting to do would be done underneath an RDA. And on my behest, I came to that young man, if I had said nothing, we would take things on in consideration and we could take a vote. But because of who he is and already what he's endured on the last project that he's done, he's allowing himself once again to be put out there and explain his activities to the neighborhood. That's what we had discussed at the beginning after he made his presentation, is he wants to put himself out there and show you what he wants to do. And he will not be alone this time, because I'm going to be there with him.
okay.
And other board members were able to do that on his last project. That unfortunately tripped up and had misunderstandings as well. So I'm confident that that young man is hearing your concerns, and that he is learning the way of the world's far too fast. If there's nothing else that you'd like to add at this moment, I'd like to see if anyone else has anything to say.
Sure. Can I have one of those maps? Do you have extras? Excellent.
While we're handing out some maps, is there anyone else that would like to comment on this project?
Thank you very much. Sam? No?
Okay. Is there any other discussion on the board? Okay, do we need to modify the motion to accept the negative and withdraw it, or could we table it till we have a motion to approve a negative determination? Can we table it for 2 weeks?
I would just continue it for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Essentially tabling.
That
your
work
vote.
with you?
Sounds good.
So November 5th?
Do we need a new motion?
We need to,
Yeah, I think we
And then
need to
make
withdraw.
another motion.
I'm wondering, do we need a motion about the site visit?
I think that in the continuance, I think we could
Okay.
put that all in one little
Yeah.
wraparound. So if we could withdraw the original motion?
That's my motion, I withdraw my motion.
And I withdraw my second.
Okay, that being done, if we can have a
So you're
motion.
back to square zero.
Yeah, make a motion to continue until November 5th, is that correct?
Correct.
With the caveat of
Of a site visit and a meeting with the neighbors, potentially.
And that will be the responsibility of Ryson to organize with the 300 committee, the chairman, we can get you the emails, and staff.
And did you understand what we just made for a motion as far as including the neighborhood? Okay, I'm talking about the two ladies behind.
Oh, yeah.
All right, did you understand that in the next 2 weeks, he's going to be reaching out to walk through there with you? Can we probably be on a weekend?
Anytime
Okay.
for them.
Okay, so maybe after we discuss, we vote on this, if the three of you want to meet in the hallway and kind of hammer something out, and then you can call me.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
He just has to remember to bring his high boots.
And I'm certain we all will. So thank you for all your information. Thank you for responding to this as well. We have a motion and a second on the table.
Who seconded it?
Second.
Not sure we did. I'll second.
Okay, that would be Mary's second. So, no further comment? Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you very much. So, onward to Town of Falmouth, 154 Blacksmith Shop Road, continued to October 29th. And that's... Do we have another one that's not on here?
No, we already, it was the racing beach.
Okay, thank you. Next is request for a hearing under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. First is 93 Falmouth Heights Road, Falmouth, Mass., for permission to replace, install, and maintain a pressure dose sewage disposal and reconstruct existing sidewalks, reconfigure and pave the parking area, install gas service, Keystone uni-block units, utilities, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Thank you, Rick.
Mr. Chairman, I'll save any of my comments until after Mr. Mergrath's presentation.
Thank you.
My name is Michael McGrath. I'm a registered engineer and professional lane surveyor. I work for Holmes and McGrath. My firm filed this plan. This is at the Quayside condominiums. It's on Falmouth Heights Road. It's a rather strange shaped lot. There's 3 buildings on it. Falmouth in a harbor is right here. So the wetland resources are really land under the ocean, coastal banks, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. The current floodplain, I think, crops through the portion of the site here. The issue is the septic systems have, is a failing septic system. So the proposal was to build a pressure dose system in the front yard. In order to get there is quite a challenge because there's not much room between the 2 buildings, and there is a septic tank that's located between these 2 buildings. I don't know how they got that in there, but there is a septic tank here. And what the plan says that this will be pump dry and evaluated by one of my engineers, and if it's not watertight and waterproof nor structurally sound, that it would be replaced with a manhole. Then there's going to be a pipe that's installed basically down the concrete sidewalk. At the same time, they're going to put a natural gas line in to bring natural gas to the buildings. So they're going to be removing the sidewalk, and when they do that, there is a rotted railroad tie wall. So there's details of how they will put in a new, I guess what was normally called a keystone wall to replace the railroad ties. There's also some work down here that is, there's some rotted ties and they wanted to replace them. That seems to be over the lot line. There is an old easement that talked about these people did have a limited easement over that portion of that lot. So the bottom line is this work is required to repair a septic system. There's no other way of doing this. And the septic system takes up most of the existing parking lot that's there. So are there any specific questions I can answer concerning this proposal?
None?
No, I don't have any questions.
Sorry.
It's okay. I thought you heard me.
You gotta yell at me tonight. This is
Okay.
one of those nights. John?
No questions.
Be happy to.
Mike?
There is a holly tree in the north, I guess it's east corner there. Nice, like if you can preserve it. I know it's a bit of an issue. And this comment, I guess, is my edification beyond my role here as a commissioner. But you've got a water line running through the middle of a septic field. How does that work?
No, it's gonna be rerouted.
Okay.
It shows it being installed. Has to be encased in concrete whenever it's needed.
Okay.
I've never put a water system.
It's on the plan, and it was a curiosity, I guess, from one engineer to another.
No, there is.
No other question.
But it has to be rerouted.
Yeah, okay.
Russ?
No questions.
Mary?
Just a small thing in the erosion control plan. Item 8 talks about if erosion occurs, the contractor shall take steps to control it. And I'm wondering, I think it's probably fairly standard that the commission or the staff be notified in the event of that.
That's a suitable condition.
Thank you. That's all, thanks.
Mario? Nice having you back, Mary. I was on site, and my only concern is the tank that we don't know how it got there. I was fortunate enough to meet up with your engineer, and we discussed his methodology, which is reflected here in the plan, and I have the strongest confidence in that engineer. I personally know him, and so what he says, I truly believe. Tonight, I'm going to reiterate on all of the notices of intent that we hear tonight, that when this board gives an order of conditions, it is the obligation of the engineer and the people pulling these permits to let everybody know what the conditions are and to make sure that they accept the orders of conditions. It's not a reflection on the individuals that I'm saying this to, but it's just something that I observed this week, that not everybody always is aware of what the conditions are when they're doing activities on the site. So I would like to really let you know that, particularly in something like this, that where you have such a tight site and activity could potentially affect others, that they're very aware of what the conditions are, as reasonable as they are, like Mary made mention of. So if there's no other,
I'll make a motion to close the hearing, take it under advisement.
Second?
we have a motion and a second. Is there any comments from the audience on this project? Is there any further discussion on the board? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Mike. Don't worry, Dave, you're gonna get it too. Do what? It's all right, you'll find out. Next is 189 Surf Drive, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise the existing dwelling and construct a new house on open piers with a deck, stairs, to reconnect utilities, install gravel driveway, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Thank you.
Chairman, for the record, David Mark, here on behalf of the applicant.
David, one thing, I just wanted to make sure that the board all, Melanie made you copies of them yesterday. They were architecturals that came in. No, we did put them in your package yesterday just to give you a better view of the house here. You can borrow my architectural, Mary.
Thank you.
I actually specifically asked that they, oh, absolutely, John, I'm sorry. I actually asked that he have a copy of them for you just to better understand the plan. Sorry, Dave.
I don't know. See?
Yes, please.
Existing house in a FEMA map view zone. The applicant would like to demolish the house, reconstruct on elevated piers. House is connected to municipal sewer, that's why you don't see a septic system on site. We've provided for a little bit of work around the perimeter of the property. Silt fence, it's a very flat lot. We're showing you proposed dry wells. And that sort of sums it up.
Not quite.
Well, there'll be questions, I'm sure.
Mr. Chairman, the reason I asked Dave to provide the architecturals is because the entire house isn't on open piling. Part of it is enclosed to provide the garage with breakaway panels. I did meet with the property owner prior, letting him know the staff's position on breakaway panels. But if you look at the architecturals, just half of the house is, the other half of the house is on open pilings. Dave, underneath that, is it going to be a slab or gravel? I forget which one.
Yeah, the site plan divides the proposed house in two. The left would be open on gravel, the right would be.
And it's gravel, okay. And the footprint has been reduced?
The existing enclosed area is about 905 feet. The enclosed area as proposed is 765.
That 765, is that just the footprint of the enclosed portion of the garage, or is that the
That's the
footprint?
entire enclosed area.
Okay.
Sit.
Yeah.
We'll start with you, Mario. No comments. Okay, Mary?
Forgive me if this information is provided, but I didn't see it all the information that I'm looking for about the net changes in coverage by structures in the A zone and in the B zone. Is that?
If I could?
Yeah, I see some information about the A zone, but I'm not clear on,
Here's your,
oh, I'm sorry,
that's
okay.
That's the enclosed area, and at the bottom note shows you the
Total, okay.
of the entire structure.
Okay. But if I'm looking at this correctly, it still doesn't, don't think I have the information that relates to the B zone specifically, do I?
Can you speak to that?
Please.
The entire structure is in the B zone. So the number you're seeing in the bottom left of the plan, which is
Is in the B zone?
yes, is
Okay, it
in the
appeared,
B zone. So we have a existing lot coverage by structure of 1,079 in the B zone.
okay.
All set? Come back to you?
I think I must be having a senior moment or something, but it appears to me that some of the structure is outside landward of the B zone, no?
I think the confusion we're having here is that you,
The different, yeah,
I can address that. I think we're confusing the B buffer zone with the V velocity zone
Okay.
here. And if you look in the center section of notes, that gives you that from here. These two numbers.
yeah, okay.
Existing and proposed, and the B buffer.
Well, it says A buffer to the
I'm
It
dune.
says A buffer.
This
that-
is the A buffer to
Yeah,
the,
just
Apologize
notice
for
that.
That should be your B buffer.
okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right, I will work with that. You can move on, thank you.
Awesome. Russ?
So breakaway panels are just in the garage area?
Correct.
Did he want to do the whole thing?
Not the whole house.
Okay, so he didn't want to do that, he just wanted to do that one area.
Right in half.
Okay.
And then to the rear is a proposed elevator, but that's enclosed by concrete.
Mike?
The architectural answers my question. No comment.
John?
No question.
Thank you for pointing that. Once again, Mary, thank you. I have no questions. I would take a motion.
Make a motion to close the hearing, take it under advisement.
Second?
One moment.
You're gonna change that note on the 10 days?
I am. How many plans would you like?
I would like 2,
All right.
unless the board would like to see the revised from A to B.
No, we have an
No,
explanation of it. It's
Okay.
something
I'm
that,
We'll
sorry,
trust you
I'm
all
sorry.
with that.
Just send me 2.
What plan am I, what would you like corrected if it's not the A to B?
The notes that says A buffer, you put them in your B there,
Will do,
and change that to a B.
will do.
Okay.
just do
I don't believe we have a DEP number.
You don't, you're right, I'm sorry, and Melanie told me that prior to her leaving today, we do not have a DEP number, so we do have to continue it until next week. Thank you, David.
Well, I withdraw my motion then.
And I will withdraw my second.
So I'll make a motion to continue the hearing until,
Tony, Matt, do you think we
When-
can give
October.
you your DEP number by next week?
I trust so.
They're discussing.
No problem.
Second.
And that'll be for DEP number only.
We have Russell's motion, Mary's second. We have a comment in the audience, if you come up to the podium, please.
More of a broad question than a comment. I didn't know.
Could you please identify yourself?
Stephen Coleman with the butter. Just had a question regarding, does the project require zoning relief or just conservation relief? Didn't know if the engineer.
Mr. Martin will be able to,
Mr. Chairman, the project currently complies with zoning and proposed will also. A lot coverage and setbacks.
does that give you?
Yep, thank you.
All right. However, I'm gonna, as I said in the last presentation, that I would, it had come to my attention earlier in this week, and that I told others that I would advise all the engineers to make sure the contractors that receive orders of conditions are aware of what goes on with the order of conditions, and that the board doesn't make decisions lightly. We do these things to meet our regulations and such. This is not a reflection on this project or any other tonight. This is just a polite reminder that it starts at the top and flows down. Information is important just to be able to make sure that the sites are managed well. With that,
May I?
please.
I'd like to address a request to you, and it's got nothing to do with our business, actually, but when I was at the site today, there was a dead cat on the shoulder of the road.
I have not had a chance
And
to.
I tried to contact the animal control officer
Thank you.
and also DPW, but I have no indication whether anybody knows that. So next time you or one of your people are at the site, could you please follow up on that?
All right, is it in the roadway? I have not had a chance.
It's
to
on the
go.
shoulder, right
Right.
in front, right up to the grass. And it was obvious, it's been there at least 24 hours. It's distressing.
Thank
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other comment in the audience about this project? Is there any on the board? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next is 54 Sharon Ann Lane, East Falmouth, for permission to modify, maintain, and license the existing timber pier, ramp, and float, repair and install water and electrical utilities, after-the-fact permission for the existing pergola, patio, restoration, and mitigation plantings required to satisfy an outstanding order of conditions under DEP 25-1083, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Good evening, Mike. Jen, do you have any questions at this time?
No, I'll save any of my questions until after Mr. McGrath's presentation.
My name is Michael McGrath. I'm a registered engineer and professional land surveyor of my firm, Holmes & Grath, filed a notice of intent. This house is at the end of Sharon Ann Lane. Sharon Ann Lane is a short street on the west side of Davisville Road. In 1988, the Conservation Commission issued an approval of a pier. The current owner has died. I'm sorry, the former owner has died. And he was the one that had the pier built. It was designed by a different firm. We were hired by the state to get a certificate of compliance, and we've discovered a couple things. First, the pier isn't in the right place. So what I've done is I've dashed or dotted in a green and put a green label on it that says permitted pier. The pier was supposed to be fixed, come out, and there was supposed to be a big float on this side. The actual pier was built shorter, and it was also built to the north 5 or 6 feet. There is, on the end of it, a platform that runs to the south. Then the existing floats, I put an next to it. The existing floats are much bigger than permitted, and they're in the shape of an L. They come up and around like that. So what we're proposing is that this extension to the south be taken off. That's why that's got an X to it. Then we're saying they should take out the piers, take out the floats and the piles that hold the existing floats and reset them so that there's one single float that's shown right here. This will require us to go and get all the other permits related to having a pier, Army Corps permit, a Chapter 91 license, a special permit under zoning. This is the first step, but we believe that this is the best solution. The depth of the water is actually better when this is shifted up because it's shallower in here. So we think in the long run this is the best solution on addressing the nonconformities of the pier. When we did the survey and we compared it to the plan of record, there was a lot more lawn than shown on the old plan. So what we're showing is restored cleared areas, and another place restored cleared areas. When you go back, we can see that this was the shape of the vegetation 25 years ago, and there's no permit that we could find that authorized the additional clearing and the clearing. There is also a pergola. It's quite a structure. We find no conservation permit for it. It's clearly within jurisdiction. So we have proposed 360 square feet of mitigation plans to make up for this existing pergola. So this notice of intent really corrects a couple of issues that look, at least to us, to be decayed boulders. I believe that obviously once the planting's done, the project would be in conformance with your regulations. So are there any specific questions of any?
Thank you, Mike. Jen?
Mike, when did the pergola show up? I'm sure you went back and looked at the aerials.
I didn't personally.
So you don't know?
I don't know personally. I'm looking and see what was written by my staff. It just said that sometime within the last 25 years, the pergola was constructed.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, it's going to be up to the board whether to allow that patio pergola to remain. They are attempting to do mitigation planting for it. Also, Mike, the landscape beds, can they be turned into native vegetation as well? All the ornamentals that are planted in your light green.
We talk about this area here?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the old plan,
And the subsurface irrigation system, when did that go in?
I'll be
You know how
blunt,
staff
I
feels
don't
about
know.
subsurface irrigation systems, especially on the coastal ponds. So the staff was just saying that the board should consider whether or not you would allow the pergola and patio to remain, since it's an unpermitted structure, within 100 feet of the salt marsh. If you do allow for it to remain, Mike, your mitigation plantings, the dotted area, that's for the pergola? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, there's 360 square feet between this portion and this portion. It's 3 times the size of the pergola. If you've gone to the site, the pergola will.
Yeah. And the only other thing Mark was requesting that the landscaping beds be turned back into natural vegetation, because he went to the site as well. Other than that, I don't have any comments.
The plan of record is not as specific as we have today, 1988, and all it just shows is the edge of one. So it doesn't identify which is landscape beds and which is not.
Okay, John?
I appreciate you trying to restore conditions to the 1988 conditions. I think that's valuable, the work that you're doing. To get the pier into compliance, I think it's commendable also. I'm wondering about how the boats are going to be situated at the float, because you have varying depths down there, and we've had previous proposals come in, and the way that boats get parked on the float. I'm wondering if you have an idea how many boats you'd imagine would be located there. Since it's a float, there's potentially 4 places for a boat to be, or up to 4 boats positioned there. But there's
I'm working for the estate and properties for sale.
right.
So I have no idea what the future will hold, but if you look at the depths here, there's 3.7, I'm sorry, 3.6, 3.7, and 4.7 here, so it's pretty deep water there. There's another sounding 4.0 there, so that should be deep enough on the north side of the float.
Yeah, I guess the one area I'm concerned about is the south side of that float. If there's a boat coming in and getting parked there, it's getting kind of close.
The soundings are 3.0, 2.8, 2.8,
Right.
2.3.
Right.
For instance, my skiff would easily fit in there with the motor up.
With the motor up, right. Just putting it out there is my concern. I think that's all that I have.
Thank you, John. Mike?
Part of the restored area is not on property.
That's true.
You're planting vegetation, are you okay with this?
Whose property is it, Mike?
I don't know.
Town of Falmouth.
I'm sorry?
Yeah,
Where it is, Sam?
this is a very strange road layout.
It is.
There was an early version that said there was a cul-de-sac here, but obviously you couldn't turn around.
Well, there is an existing rope gate with posts on either side across what appeared to be access to that cleared area. That disappearing, or is it a good idea to leave it?
When we go back to the plan of record, it clearly shows that this was vegetated. So
Okay.
we agree with the staff, we put plants back.
And it belongs to the town, and we need permission from the town, I guess? Where do we, you know? we're building on other people's property, is all I'm concerned about.
I guess if you want me to, we could continue and I'd ask for a license from the Board of Selectmen or a permit to restore what was cut, but
I think we've required that in the past from other activities, other plantings, one on Bay Road. No, not Bay, but any of the activity, any of the plantings would, some kind of recognition from the town that that activity is going to be allowed. Anything further, Mike?
No, I'm good.
Les?
You good?
I gather that we don't have specific information about the vegetated areas, how they were vegetated before, or do trees, woody shrubs, whatever?
all I can do is show you the plan of record.
I mean, we don't have photographs, we don't have, is that correct?
I don't know, it was done by another firm.
When in
These are
doubt,
different
hide
these
behind
days.
the truth.
Pardon me? I wish there was the Wayback Machine, like DVD Sherman.
And there's no, is there a planting plan now?
No, just what we have shown.
Just the area is designated?
That's right.
And so how are we going to approach that?
You mean, he has planting notes on what species they're providing on the
And
plan.
you're-
Arrowwood,
That's okay.
oh yeah.
All right.
Mark went through this with Jeff Johnson.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
No, we have the species that they're planting there. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, and I was just curious as to whether we knew what we were replacing in the way of trees, or, but we
No.
don't. Okay. Thank you, that's all.
By the way, I sent an email that had a whole list of flowers and shrubs that are important to bees, and I hope you incorporate them in recommended plants.
I don't think I've seen that email.
I'll forward it to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a lot to like about this. For one thing, it'll bring it into compliance with the previous order of conditions. So there's a cautionary tale there for anyone out there. Get that certificate of compliance and record it at the Registry of Deeds, because this is 29 years since this project was completed, and it fouled up a sale here. And, a lot of people, after a year or two, they forget about the obligation to get a cert of compliance. And here they are 29 years later, and they've got to jump through some hoops here to get it to compliance. So get that cert of compliance if you can, as soon as possible. I like the reconfiguration of the floats. I think we're picking up, a couple of feet of water depth by relocating that float. So that's a good thing. You're getting rid of the L.
There's much less float in the future once we get approval.
Yes, what's not to like?
Well, if you want me to go get a permit from the engineering department, it'll take at least 3 weeks.
I think it's going to
Or
be,
you could condition it.
And you know that they have to reapply for a new Chapter 91.
Of course. I said that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine.
Okay.
discussing this with our colleagues, that the suggestion of making it a condition is acceptable. I think that that's because it's an inter thing. Now, is there any other comments on the board? Yes, John.
I wasn't sure, that something else that was coming up with the pier was the matter of this shellfish survey. And I don't know how we're addressing that, if we're going to kind of pass over it, or if there's some mitigation that can be done to kind of address that for the new piles that are going in. I know that you could move the shellfish or propose planting seed in adjacent areas to mitigate the pilings going in. but it seems like we're going to need a variance for that part.
Well, you're removing some that are not going to go back at all.
They're
It's
being
almost-
taken out,
Yep, the southern end of that pier,
so you're just moving it.
and you're going to remove, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, you're removing 2 down there.
If we look at it, look at the X's on the
Right.
color plan.
Right.
Removing this, this, and this.
I understand
Yeah,
that.
we know, just, what,
So,
The
I
question-
looked at it as a wash.
yeah.
The question that I have is about the requirement to do a shellfish survey. Is that an issue or not? And if it is, do we need to require some
I don't think
mitigation?
it will be, because it's an existing, if this was a new project, how I'm looking at it, if this was a new project, but there's an existing conditions there now, that only a small portion, and that is in the mooring field of an existing. So I don't see,
So it's established.
it's established. I don't think it
Okay.
is necessary to do that.
Fair enough.
It's a valid point, though, to,
But you've answered my concern. So,
okay, yeah,
I don't-
the way I'm looking at it, if this was a total new design without question, or if the floats were totally off to the east, where you'd have more activity that was not historical.
Or if
But-
it wasn't previously permitted or licensed.
Correct. You know, all these factors are kind of giving us a little bit of leeway in this, so as to not have to have that hurdle.
Thank you for clarifying it.
Okay. Is there any other comments from the board? Did we have a motion on this?
I move to take this under advisement.
Second.
John's motion, Mario's second. Is there any comments in the audience about this project? One final comment from me, because I'm going to be saying it to all my engineers tonight, is that when the order of condition goes out, that the orders are understood by all the people underneath, on the top of that pyramid down, that full understanding of conditions and activities.
We're not there all the time.
No, you're not.
So-
No, you're not, but, and I'm just saying, it's no reflection of this individual project, it's just an informative thing that I just want to remind people, the orders and conditions and activities on site are something that a conduit of communication is a good way to approach it.
The current process is they're supposed to meet with the staff. Supposed to put in the hay bales, and the hay bales are supposed to be inspected and meet with the staff. And so,
And
if that
just-
continues, that should eliminate these kind of
Unfortunately, it's always in a perfect world, and that's why I'm going to be hammering this home, and I can stand here toe-to-toe tonight and repeat this as many times as I want, right? That this is really something that I want people to take to heart. Okay? That's all. Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you. Next is 84 Ransom Road, Falmouth, Mass. Is that to shut me up? For permission to add a second floor to the existing house, expand the garage, widen the driveway, construct a porch, install retaining walls, steps, gas line, remove an oak tree, and the associated excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll save any of my comments till after Mr. Goff's presentation, and I do have a few comments. Sorry. Cutting to the line.
For the record, my name is Tom Bunker with USS Design. Let's prepare this plan for this fall's. It's on a site on Ransom Road, fronts on Oyster Pond. As you can see, it's on the east by Oyster Pond, on the west and northwest by Ransom Road. There's a drainage ditch that comes from some inland wetlands up here that go out this way into the pond. There's a BVW around it here. There's also BVW associated with this, back here along the ditch. The BVWs were flagged by Vaquero Environmental Consulting in that area. House was built in 1949, prior to any of the environmental protection laws. I have something else I'd like to submit. Some aerial photos, 1960, 1975, aerial photos. Show some conditions. A little blurry, of course, as they get to be. So we have the site here, the house up on the hill, because at the time it was built, didn't have all the setback requirements. We have a flood zone along Oyster Pond coming up to this location here and wrapping around the site. The flood zone and this slope along Oyster Pond and some along the north side here is steeper than 4 to 1, so the coastal bank goes up through the flood zone and above the top of the flood zone up to the point where it's less than 4 to 1. That point is fairly obvious on the site. We have that drawn on here. Right above that, there's a patio. There's a little bit of a little concrete appendage to the patio in this location. The bank pretty much wraps around the garage over there and cuts across the driveway somewhat and then across Ransom Road. Most of the lot is in an A zone. I have various A zones. I didn't show them on the existing conditions plan, although I probably should have, but they're on the proposed site plan. The furthest landward A zone is 50 feet from the coastal bank, where that coastal bank touches another wetland at its base, so it cuts across the lot here, 50 feet here, then there's where the bank is just in the driveway along the road, then there's a 25-foot A zone in this location. And if you take the 100-foot B zone from the bank and all the wetlands, this last corner is in B zone, so the entire lot is in either A or B, mostly in A. One of the reasons I distributed these photos is in the description of the site. We have down at the bottom, down by this drainage ditch, a stone parking area in that location. You can make things out on the photos there. Certainly on the 1975 town topo, which I've colored in a little bit, you can see where it was vegetated and cleared on that site. On the 1960 photo, there's something going on down in that location, and on the other photos too, you can see something. This has been here for a while. The prior seller talked with Kevin Clower, said that I think he's been owned it since 1983. It was that way when he bought it in 1983, so and as long as he's had it also. What the Spalls want to do mainly is add a second floor to the house, but also on this plan they want to widen the garage. So there's 10 feet of new structure here. Currently the garage sticks out a few feet in front of the house. So this little area here, the widening of the garage will add, I believe, 30 square feet in this location here, and along with widening the garage, you need the driveway to go with it, so they're widening the driveway, which is 283 square feet in this location. There's currently a retaining wall along this side of the driveway, so you have to move the retaining wall back 10 feet. And the oak tree right here, which is not labeled on the plan to be removed, but in the narrative, this oak tree here will have to be removed to take out to build the retaining wall. Also, when the garage is widened here, there's where's that front stoop right now, that'll be moved over, made into a little bit of a porch, an open porch up here for the front door, along with the interior renovations. Small bay window on the front adds a few square feet. So those are the changes to the house, but they also would like to do some work on the left-hand side of the garage. Currently, there are some gas canisters right in this location here. We're going to remove the gas canisters and like to put a person door on the side of the garage. This will have a small retaining wall and some steps built up to access along the side of the garage in that location. There's currently a retaining wall there now. Not much vegetation. I feel that this, it is right along the coastal bank, but putting that in and providing a stable surface for getting around the house will actually help the stability of the bank, reducing reducing foot traffic on a slope like that where there currently is. The surface in there will be a crushed stone surface with just some rises going up in that location. As compensation for this expansion, the total expansion of impervious surface is 425 square feet with the driveway and the house, and that's including 85 square feet here, which is not impervious, but it's a pervious surface which will not support vegetative buffer in this location here. As compensation for that, will be removing the stone driveway here, which is a pervious surface which will not support a naturally vegetated buffer. So we'll be taking all of this stone out and replacing that with loam. This is 557, after the narrative was done, we updated the plan. It's 557 square feet of the stone area that would be removed in exchange for the 425 square feet of new surface area that's being increased. Dry wells will be added, where we can, mainly under the driveway, to take the roof runoff, and limited work protected by hay bales where the construction is nearby, but on the backside, especially along the patio where nothing really is happening there, to put up the construction type fence to keep debris and people from going over the edge. That's the proposal. I'll take questions.
Jen?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Tom, you're gonna have to put the trees on the coastal bank?
Yes.
Because not convinced you're gonna be able to build a second floor on there without damaging some of those trees. So would like to see them on plan. You did provide me today, to the board, I don't know, the board, I don't believe has had a chance to see it, with a structural engineering. John, can you a certification from a structural engineer that that foundation can support a second floor, a first and second floor?
Yes.
Okay. And that includes with you widening and cutting into that garage area and all that? Okay. And so you are increasing the impervious surface or pervious surface by 425-ish square feet in an A zone.
Yes.
Which requires a 3-to-1 mitigation of woody material, woody shrubs. And you're providing, so that would be, what, 12 something, 1275? 1,275 square feet of mitigation planning?
Increasing the surface, but also decreasing the surface, pervious surface, which will not support
How are you doing
vegetation.
that?
Taking out the stone parking area.
That's what you're proposing to plant?
Right. and it's a swap.
Okay. So, okay, I see what you're saying. I'm sure I agree with it, but I see what you're saying. And but you're turning that into grass, correct? That area?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what we're proposing, yes.
Okay. And I'm still really concerned at how you're gonna build this second floor without damaging some of those trees on the bank.
Okay.
So I do need to see this. And you provided the aerial, which you say proves that that little area down there near the wetland that's all cleared was there prior to...
As best we can make out, I
Yeah.
think in the 1960
Okay,
photo,
the
you can
board
see that
can
it was
decide,
there.
yeah, I see what you're doing there. Okay.
You all set?
Yeah.
Okay. Mario?
Not much to say. It's a steep coastal bank, but, so erosion control measures will be important. But it's a vertical buffer. It's not eroding as far as I can see. And I like the idea of replacing that gravel lot and replanting that. That's an amenity. So I don't have a problem with this.
I don't really have a problem either. It's a challenging project. I do have one question. In comparing the two plans, it looks to me like the designation of the top of the coastal bank is not the same in the two plans. The southeast corner of the garage on the proposed additions plan kind of has a square-ish bump out in the coastal bank top of. I'm wondering if I'm looking at something other than the top of the coastal bank, but the lines with the triangles.
No, it's around. What is it?
See what this is what I'm talking about here. This is just a straight, or, a soft 90-degree corner versus there's a bump out.
Yeah, there's a bump out there.
Do you see what we're talking about, Tom?
Not yet.
Come on
You want to
over.
come over and I'll
Yeah.
show you?
It's right here.
I just don't understand what this is.
Oh,
Here's
that's
the
an
bump.
No, there's an updated existing conditions plan.
Oh,
That's why. We have a revised plan. Yeah, you have the revision of the proposed.
You received the
So-
updated existing conditions plan on October 15th.
Because it doesn't follow the topographic line.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking at, and I think it's just an error.
Yeah, this is an
Okay.
updated.
It's
okay, well,
updated.
these two do match, so, okay.
Which one?
I'm looking at,
This is the
was this an
revised.
error, or is it something else that
Yeah.
I'm not understanding?
I thought it was something when I initially
Right.
did it, it looked like it
On
might
either.
have
Okay.
come
Because it doesn't make sense that it would.
No,
Okay, so it's just sort of like a fiddling around draft
It does
of it?
kind of flatten out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A little bit, but I thought it wasn't.
Okay. Okay, I didn't realize there was a later,
Now I understand what you're.
later. Okay, thank you. That's all, thanks.
No question.
Mike?
Good eyes, wrong place.
For construction of widening the driveway, you're going to be removing some fair amount of soil, some erosion control across the foot of that driveway because if you don't, it's all going to end up in that culvert.
There would, yeah, it's hard to, yes, there definitely have to be some
Something,
during
that's the
construction when
only-
they're coming in and out. And would have a sock.
Something
wire log
across, just,
across there.
it doesn't have to be the whole time, but, well, that excavation's going on.
Certainly when they buttoned up for the night or for the weekend or something, there should
Yes.
be
Exactly.
something across it.
Exactly. Other than that, Tom, I'm fine.
John?
No questions.
Reading your, I always get these not-so-warm fuzzies. Engineering analysis was performed on the as-built construction. The structural components of the house foundation consist 8-inch concrete block, full basement walls. Most likely, reinforced and on a concrete footing. I don't like hearing that. I really, most likely, it leaves me really no warm fuzzies with that at all. Because I can't tell you how many times I've had to do cores, excavate, and truly examine something. I don't like that. And then there's a little caveat, or may be removed and replaced with wooden frame walls. That's on a different application of some certain things. Don't really have an issue with that, except I don't have any architecturals really. I'm just going off of that. You know, and I don't have a real strong impression with this. So my suggestion is that if this project is approved, this is a letter to Mr. Gore, and that's fine. You know, if he likes it, that's all well and good. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a caveat in the conditions that if there's any failure of the existing foundation during this period, and I do not want this to be like what happened in the past, and this is one of the reasons that I'm saying all this tonight, that before things get ahead of themselves, that, again, this is no reflection of the present project. This is some things that have historically happened, and I'm really trying to avoid them in the future. We got rain beating against the windows, the erosion stuff, you know, the 100-year storms. This has just been a hell of a week for all these little trip-ups in my life. And I just really am tired of of repeating myself. If there's somehow in the order of conditions, there's going to be a caveat in here. I don't want to stop the project, I just don't want it to go bad. You know, and if they start in on something, the earlier we know, the quicker we can respond and everybody's happy. I do not want to get caught with mud on my shoes with this.
I know. Any change has to go before you, and I talked to the applicant, and if there's a problem with it, you guys don't like it, if something happens.
And it's in their best interest as well to capture it early, because that gives us more time to respond to things.
Tom, please make sure your client understands that if something does go wrong, and they do have to take that foundation, and they consider it an emergency, it's not an emergency for this board. So they're going to have to work on the board's time schedule and not their own. And that has happened too, with people have put my staff and this board in incredibly difficult positions because they didn't do their homework.
Understood.
We need trees on those plans, and if Tom wants architecturals, they would probably help us determine how far up, because some of those trees come over the house and they're going to have to be limbed up, and you're not telling us how many trees are going to be removed on that bank or have to be altered on that bank, and that's going to have to be looked at as well.
Do you have a DEP number?
I'm
David,
sure there was
yes.
one, yeah.
Okay.
Dave was the only one that didn't have DEP.
Okay.
And I'm really having a hard time widening the driveway and replacing grass as that offset. Staff's having a hard time with that. I'd rather see woody shrubs, but the trees definitely have to be shown on the plan prior to closing this. I mean, trees were shown on other parts of this property, not on the bank, where it's most important that we know where they are.
Yes.
Yeah, the grass, I mean, it kind of makes me think this is still going to be a parking area.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I know how my kids park, and even if
It's either gonna
even
be
if I
used for
put
parking area or
crushed glass
storage.
there, I'm sure.
Storage.
Yeah, boats or something like that, absolutely.
Is there any further discussion on the board? Is there a...
Where's my schedule?
Would you like to...
We're good. November 5th? Would that give you enough time to get out there, Tom? Okay.
I'll make a motion to continue until November 5th on the request of the applicant.
Second.
there any discussion on the board? Is there any discussion in the audience about this project? Can you come up and identify yourself, please?
Hi, Wendy Bisler, Executive Director of Oyster Pond Environmental Trust. I'm glad to hear that the Concom is looking at this, looking at the impacts of the project on the resources around the pond. So, we are concerned about the trees being impacted, so it would be nice to get that a little bit more defined. The grassy, this area now I know has been usually, I know former tenants who lived there stored boats and stuff there, so I think it's safe to say it'd be a storage or a parking area. I just want to clarify, this is not a drainage ditch. This is actually called Mosquito Creek, very aptly named, I should say, if you go in there in the right time of year. And it's the only surface source of water to Oyster Pond. So there's a large wetland area here that drains through here and drains into the pond. So I just want you to be aware of that. It's more than a drainage ditch. It's actually a flowing body of water.
Henceforth to be referred to as Mosquito Creek.
Mosquito Creek, yes.
Thank you.
So, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Is there any further discussion in the audience about this project? We have a motion and a second on the table. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you. Next is continued request for hearing under a notice of intent, request for variance. 0 Ferry Road, White, Mass. For permission to construct and maintain timber stairs, 4.5 foot by 82 foot fixed timber pier, 3 foot by 14 foot ramp, 4 foot by 10 foot, and 5 foot by 12 foot, 4 by 4 post, 4 by 4 inch posts, 2 6 by 6 inch posts, and 13 12-inch diameter pilings for shared community access, the associated excavating and grading. The request for variance under FWR 10.13 from the performance standards set out in FWR 10.16 1B and 6. Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, the quorum on this is Mario, Mary, Ross, yourself, and Mike.
Thank you.
And this hearing was continued so that the applicant could address some of the submittals that were provided by the staff and that had been done.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening, my name's Mike McGrath. I'm accompanied tonight by Glenn Wood. You know I'm a professional engineer and land surveyor. I work for Homes of McGrath. We brought all the exhibits from the first hearing. I don't think I need to go through them unless you want me to, but I did show you various aerial photographs, various evidence that the structure has existed. I'm sorry, I should start.
Thank you, Mike.
That the pier existed for many years. There was, in fact, a pier there for 40 years. The pier was removed without a permit. I looked at, there's building permits been issued for the 2 bulkheads, but there's no specific building permit was issued to remove the pier nor to remove the coastal stairs. You need a building permit to remove structures in Massachusetts. There's also a zoning requirement for a special permit to do work in wetlands. This is a seasonal pier, so there were piles sticking up in the water, and those piles are missing. So we're now been forced to come before you to propose to replace structures that were not removed, as far as I can see, appropriately. I wrote you a letter October 8th, 2012, which we filed. I did include in the letter, the first thing was project purpose and previous existing structure. I enclosed a copy of a plan that I will hand out. colored copies.
Thank you.
This would be a plan to rebuild what was in the water before. The previous plan showed a set of stairs over, and then there was a bulkhead, rather than go through all that alteration. This simplifies it. So that was included in the letter dated October 8th. That was referenced in the first paragraph. Jennifer did place a memorandum that talked about how the stairs were, how she authorized the removal of the stairs. The condition of the stairs, however, my clients disagree in that they brought up, they carried heavy duct sections after Tropical Sandy. Alex Hammer and Bob and Mark Whalen actually carried the heavy sections up over the stairs, and there was a woman named Olga Di Vittorio who used the stairs without hesitation. So, in any case, it would have required a building permit, and as far as I'm concerned, a special permit to remove the stairs. Shellfish density. We have shown the pier to be extended to get the right depth. When you go out and you look at what the actual sediments are, the sediments are actually mud and are not good habitat.
I have two there.
If you recall, we furnished you with a shellfish study by Echo Analyst, and they reported that where the floats are in the mooring area was a mud with sulfic, a sulfic black layer. That means it smells. The water depths in that area from 3 feet to more than 6 feet, and so this is much better than the depths that were available at the Falmouth Pier. So we ask that you consider approving the extension with a variance. We do need a variance for it, but we believe that that is a better place to more boats. The proposed boat configuration, we gave the commission a sketch showing how boats would be tied up to the floats that are shown. We identified 4 boats on the sketch. It is included in the notice. You referenced the, Jennifer referenced the denial for pier. This current application is different in the way that the structure's configured, plus it is it basically replaces something that already happened. Right now, there's no recreational commercial harvesting or quahog in the vicinity of this pier. So, and then no recreational harvesting is even allowed because of the grant. So we say that each application has to stand on its own. One of the adverse effects of the way that the coastal bank was left is that you can't go up and down the coastal bank. It used to provide access. You can't, nobody can go over that bank today unless they're very athletic. So I believe that there is, the end result of the activities here, is people that have used this as access to the water for 40 years are being barred by activities that I don't see had the right permits. And as far as I'm concerned, you have to step back and say, if someone removes something without a permit, and then we force people to have the benefit of that act for years and years and years to ungodly expense, aren't you being used? Aren't you being used as a tool? The impact of, those questions about impacts from storm events. And we identified that we could remove the ramp and float within 24 hours of an impending storm or hurricane. The Falmouth wetland regulations don't describe a shared dock at all. It describes common and community dock, neither which this fits. And the proposed float design was, as far as I'm concerned, an appropriate design for structures out in water. There's no zoning setbacks off of those floats because it's out in land belonging to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Even if it wasn't. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a completely appropriate design. So in the letter, I included copies of the mud. I also gave you photographs of the still existing sections. That's included in that letter. They are still stored on a nearby house. Those are the platforms that they used to place in between the piles. And as I said, I described how, and this is included in the letter. You all should have received the letter. So I think that now it's probably appropriate for Glenn Wood to testify about the zone about the variance of your regulations.
Thank you.
Good evening. Glenn Wood, Rubin and Rubin for the applicant. We're here tonight after some continuances, knowing that the commission was not going to be favorable to more of those. I will say, without getting into any details, because I can't, there's been extensive good faith discussions between the neighbors and our clients to come up with a reasonable solution. Everyone's worked really hard in good faith. We're not there yet. I still hope we will be, but given the fact that we knew that we weren't going to get a further continuance, and given that we surely didn't want to be in a position of not being able to continue to present the project as we filed, we're required to be here this evening. Holmes and McGrath's letter, I think, addresses all of the issues that were raised in the initial and only hearing on the merits on the project to date. Again, the reason why we're submitting this in lieu of a rebuild of the pre-existing 50-ish year-old structure that was there and was in fine shape for many, many years. You know, as was submitted to you for the record by Holmes and McGrath, these are the dock sections. They're in perfect shape. The dock pilings were in perfect shape. The bottom of the stairs was maybe banged up a little bit, but was easily repairable. The thought that this dock was in miserable shape or demolished or somehow damaged in any substantial way by Sandy is bogus. And it was a ploy to basically use some kind of a system at a moment in time to somehow, without the commission having any input, which it needed to be in our view, as well as it appears the building inspector, to be removed. We think we've addressed the issues through the McGrath submittal. We have submitted for the record what the in-kind replacement plan would look like. We'd be happy again to go back and do it, but we can't, as was pointed out in the previous hearing, have two formal plans in front of you. And therefore, we've been faced with a conundrum of either going and submitting a rebuild of what we really want, which is nothing more than what's been there for half a century, or building something that completely meets your design standards. It completely meets the DEP small dock and pier guidelines completely. It completely meets your local design standards for docks completely. The only thing that it doesn't meet maybe, and we contest that, but we've submitted a variance anyways, is that it's in significant shellfish habitat. We think that that could be waived. In fact, that's been waived. In fact, part of our variance request that we've submitted is to ask that the shellfish report requirement be waived. We've already submitted it, but if you would waive it on this instance, as you have done in various projects in the Falmouth Inner Harbor, because even though there's significant shellfish habitat there, you've chosen to waive it, and therefore those projects haven't required the need for a variance. Those decisions are attached to my variance. We'd be asked to be treated the same. Why shouldn't we? For a rebuild. But if in fact you deem that not necessary and we need a variance because we're in significant shellfish habitat, that variance has been submitted. That's the only design standard that we don't meet. And as we point out though, in the one area where a project can have any adverse impact whatsoever on shellfish habitat, based on many decisions of this commission and judicial decisions overturning this commission over the years, including the concept of bridging over shellfish where you've got a higher density in the inner tidal zone with oysters or soft shells, or possibly in the inner subtidal zone with quahogs before you get to black and oxic mud. There are decisions against this commission that say bridging is allowed and that pilings in and of themselves are not an adverse impact and not a reason for denial. We have the depth. We have 3.5 to 4.5 feet of water at the outer limit, meeting your design standards for length. The area where there is some still quantities in the global number of your significant shellfish numbers, the area where the mooring area would be is marginal at best. Further, it's in a shellfish grant area, so it's illegal, impossible for any recreational fishing. It's illegal for any commercial fishing, but for the holder of the shellfish license. And that person doesn't even quahog and has submitted a letter of no objection to this filing. So what's the deal? There's no issues here from a shellfish perspective. So we believe that even if the commission thinks that we need to move ahead with a shellfish survey, even though you've waived that provision on numerous projects in the Inner Harbor because you've deemed it unnecessary because they don't need to, and even if we need a variance, we think that we meet the standard in this instance. We'd be happy again to consider the smaller dock, but that's not what we're faced with, and we obviously this is a project that at the superseding level by DEP would be approved in, it's a certainty, it would be approved. It meets all small dock and pier guidelines, and the only issue here whatsoever, even if this was a new dock, which we're claiming it really shouldn't have been treated as legally or from an equitable basis, is the shellfish numbers that overall go up and over your numbers for significant shellfish habitat. So that's our basic position on the variance. We think that there's ways to work around it or through it. But whichever way, we think that in this unique situation that's been completely out of our client's control, this commission needs to take all of that into consideration, all of which is in the record, including a plethora of affidavits that show the historic use, a plethora of affidavits that show that this structure was not damaged by Sandy at all, and our client should have had the opportunity to rebuild it. The pilings were in perfect shape. The decking was removed before Sandy and still sits and could be installed tomorrow, if that was possible. We've read the memo of the agent. Interestingly, even though previous to this it talked about justification under the emergency regs for Sandy, that's not found in this memo. We view the justifications and the authorizations for its removal to be not proper, and it surely needed to come in front of this commission for approval. You can't just go in and remove structures without permits. And in this case, it was removed without our assent and/or knowledge. We realize this is a challenging and uncomfortable situation. I don't like it either, but neither do my clients. And they're just trying to get back what they had generationally and continue to use what they have as a right with a project as proposed here that is entirely environmentally benign. I'd be happy, or Mike would be happy, to answer any questions you have of us now or as the hearing advances.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You want? Jen?
No, no question.
Okay. Mario?
I have a couple. First of all, I'm completely in favor of reconstructing the stairs. That's an ongoing problem to the stability of that coastal bank, having people run down it, or they were rappelling at one point. I guess they don't do that anymore. But certainly questioning whether or not our conservation administrator had the legal authority to take down an unsafe structure that was leading to more problems with the stability of the coastal bank. She has every right under the regulations under, what's the jurisdiction that I'm talking about?
The local bylaw?
Yeah.
Find it, please, Mario.
I'm sorry?
I would ask you to find it in the bylaw. Legally, cite to me if you would.
In the regulations.
Where? Find it, please.
Well, let's see.
And I'm
What
going
am I
to,
thinking?
one moment, just for this. I see hands being raised up and people coming up to the podium. And I have, my colleague has the floor right now. And he's going to make his comments and we will respond to them in a timely fashion. I'm not going to entertain ups and downs. Everybody's going to take a breath, and we're just going to deal with this. And that's.
I'll change my line of questioning for the time being. Could you outline to me, Counselor, where the overriding public benefit is with this new project?
Yes,
What
of
is
course.
that?
The overriding benefit is something that this commission has found in other variances that they've granted. I've received variances for other dock projects from this commission with similar, if not close to identical, variances to this. This is even more so. We're seeking to rebuild a structure that was grandfathered. We're looking to rebuild a structure that was illegally removed. We're looking to build a structure now that is more environmentally sound and meets all of your design regulations, every entire one of them, Mario. This project is environmentally...
What is the overriding public
The
benefit?
overriding public benefit is that because it's a more environmentally sensitive project, that is surely in the public benefit over the project that was there, that was grandfathered, that was illegally removed.
All right, Counsel, once again, you're going to have to explain to me how this furthers the protection of resource areas. We had once there a pier from mean high water, what was it, 35 feet? Is that what I read?
It was short.
Right.
Right.
Now, the linear footage, including the L, has gone to 100 linear feet.
Yeah.
And you keep calling it a reconstruction. That's like replacing a chicken coop with a 4-bedroom house.
It's not an issue.
And calling it a reconstruction.
And I just want to put this in focus, if I may. I don't mean to interrupt, but we don't have to, their project is what they've presented. And if we just focus in on that and keep things as brief as we need to. I don't want to have to debate things that we've already discussed multiple times.
Okay.
All right?
But
I don't mean.
he raises an important point.
He does, and I look
And-
forward to
and
you
I-
responding. I
Thank
do.
you.
I do, but I just don't want to say the same thing 3 times, 2 different ways.
Agreed,
Thank you.
agreed. I'm not looking to extend.
Mike, this is a mapped shellfish grant, we all know that, okay? So there's definitely land containing shellfish. My question is, why should we waive the regulatory requirement of a full shellfish survey to benefit a single landowner? I mean, where's the public benefit in that?
And I'm going to let council respond to that, but those are also things that we'd be discussing in deliberation. He's making his presentation, and we're going to take all the information, your inquiries, his information, and during our deliberation is when we will actually do the hammer and nails to things.
I will relinquish the
But
floor.
I do want you to respond to that.
Yeah, and I'd like to. 2 very important points, Mario. 1, this commission, for the record, has to take serious credence in the letter of no objection from the holder of the license, the only person that can shellfish in the area. 1, that's huge, huge. 2, a project isn't defined, and a commission's jurisdiction in reviewing isn't defined by the size of a project. It's defined by its impacts and its adverse impacts. Correct?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Therefore, when one looks at the project that we are proposing a project that is environmentally benign. It is larger, yes. It is longer, yes. It's been supported with no opposition by the harbor master, even though you have no interest of navigation within the commission. But the only increase of anything in land containing shellfish is more pilings. A few more pilings in this area have been shown judicially in decisions that this commission has been overruled on over the past 20 years, that a few pilings have no adverse impact on land containing shellfish in the list of 6 or 7 performance standards in land containing shellfish, in the regs, okay? So size alone is not the issue here. A size 13-foot isn't a bigger impact per se than a smaller one. It's an issue of height, it's an issue of where the mooring field is going to be for motorized vessels, it's an issue of depth. In this instance, the motorized impact, the only impact of any significance that's an adverse impact from docks, judicially and through this commission over the years, is prop wash. That's the only major issue, if otherwise perfectly designed. Otherwise, this meets all of your design standards. We're in 3.5 to 4.5 feet of water, well over your standards. So you cannot suggest that this project at its outside will have any prop wash issues. It's impossible. It's impossible to make that finding in your ruling. So therefore, there are no impacts on shellfish, land-containing shellfish, and those 6 or 7 performance standards of water circulation, turbidity, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why this project is in the public interest, because it's a better designed project in land-containing shellfish.
I will relinquish the floor
Could I
at your
just-
behest.
I think it's important I also say something. We did submit the shellfish study by Pamela Newberg. I want to quote the last paragraph. Fewer shellfish were found in the surveyed area between 70 feet and 100 feet from mean high water. And only 2 cohogs were found within the area where the proposed dock and vessel will be placed. The sediment in the proposed dock area is comprised of anoxic sediment, is not optimal for shellfish growth, and is reflected by lower densities in this area when compared to the area between 20 and 65 feet from mean high water. So basically, she only found 2 cohogs in this area. She did find significant cohogs, even within the old footprint of the significant as far as your regulations are concerned. Even within the footprint of the old pier, she found shellfish.
Thank you for that clarification.
And just as a final point, the only filing that's speaking on the record, in the record, which is all that you can consider, the only formal opinion to date filed, and when we close the hearing tonight, that will be, is a professional expert saying this project will have no adverse impact on shellfish. So that's a further point. There's nothing else in the record suggesting that this project will have any adverse impact on shellfish.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment and ask a question. They're separate things. On the question of the letter from the holder of the grant, I don't think that it has any bearing whatsoever one way or another on this particular matter, because the holder of the grant has no authority in the matter, and also because the intent of the regulations is not solely to allow shellfishing or promote shellfishing. It's to promote that kind of healthy environment. It's a separate matter. So, and I'm not commenting on that aspect of things. I'm just saying, in my opinion, that there's the, you know, the assent or approval or whatever of the grant holder has no bearing on anything one way or the other. The question I have has to do with the variance and the one of the conditions, which is that the hardship was not created by the applicant or the applicant's agent. And certainly there are a variety of things to consider here as to why this notice has even been filed. And what I'm wondering is what you would say to the idea that the applicant may have contributed to the situation by never licensing this dock. The fact that a dock isn't licensed doesn't, the fact that 22,000 docks in the state aren't licensed doesn't mean it's okay not to be licensed. You know, the website for the Chapter 91 program makes it clear that the dock that was existing would have been subject to an enforcement order and things like that. So my basic question is, and I do want to hear how you respond.
Sure, yeah.
Has the applicant contributed to the situation by never licensing the dock?
Yeah, that's a good question. The answer, no. First off, Chapter 91, just as you claim that you shouldn't consider the holder of the shellfish license to have any justification, which seems like he's the only other expert who's even opined on this to date.
I said authority, no authority in the matter.
Well, you likewise have no authority under Chapter 91. Chapter 91 is irrelevant to this commission under the Wetlands Protection Act and the Home Rule Wetlands Bylaw. It's irrelevant.
I realize it's irrelevant in terms...
Legally irrelevant.
But within the question of the variance and whether the conditions of the variance are met, I find it hard to call that irrelevant.
It is irrelevant legally. Secondly, this was a legal dock under your jurisdiction because it was grandfathered. It was built prior to the Wetlands Protection Act. It was built prior to the Home Rule Wetlands Bylaw. Therefore, you could not take any enforcement action against it whatsoever because legally it's grandfathered. Chapter 91 is a different jurisdiction. It's irrelevant to you, and it can't be considered under the variance whatsoever. This is clearly a hardship. We had nothing to do with it. It was removed without our assent. It was removed with misinformation and other interesting actions, none of which the commission was party to at all. But clearly there's hardship, and the commission cannot legally whatsoever speak or consider, even though Jen has suggested they can, that's legally impossible. Chapter 91 is DEP, it's a state law, it's not within your umbrella. You have to ignore it, and this was a legal grandfathered structure under your jurisdiction. That's the real answer.
Okay. I would
and
just
my-
like to make one more statement for the record,
Well,
and I
yeah,
think
I-
that we just don't, in this commission, ever accept the term grandfathered. Things are not defined that way. Is that right,
Well,
Jen?
you need to then, because grandfathered is a legal situation. An example, lawn to the edge of a buffer zone, lawn to the top of a coastal bank on an existing house. You can, when someone comes in to say tear down a house on the top of a coastal bank, in the quid pro quo, in the bargaining, in the horse trading, you can ask that property owner to give back stuff. But if they're just continuing to live and mow their lawn to the edge of the bluff, as they've done for 75 years, and you know there's what, 250 of those cases in your town? It's grandfathered, and you can't do anything about it. So it is entirely relevant, and it is the legal real world.
Okay, but we're talking here about a situation not of just continuing what's been done forever, but of replacing, changing, et cetera.
And that's why we're trying to do a better
That's what this whole
design,
process
that's more
is gonna be
environmentally
about.
sensitive. We'd be happy to go back to the other one. It's a lot cheaper.
My,
Thank you.
I have constant applications before waterways. I've permitted, after the fact, a bridge in North Falmouth. I've permitted a house in Penzance. Chapter 91, there's an awful lot of non-conforming structures. No matter what, we have to get a Chapter 91 license. So the fact that something doesn't have a Chapter 91 license shouldn't lead you to deny something. You had to approve a bridge not that long ago, being rebuilt in North Falmouth.
Thank you, Mike. Is that-
I'm all set, yes.
If you can be brief, please.
I just have one question for Mike. In your narrative, page 4, you say the proposed pier is neither a common dock nor a community dock as defined in the regulations. Well, if it isn't a common dock or a community dock, it must be a private dock, no? Or
It's
semi-private?
shared by 4 families. When you created the regulations, you chose not to identify as a class a structure that's shared by several people. The community and the common dock, there's very specific things we cannot meet. One of them, for instance, requires it to be in a cluster subdivision. I've never seen one to meet one. So the issue here is that this is shared by 4 families. It's been shared for 40 years.
So anybody outside those 4 families would be prohibited from using this?
They are the applicants, let's put it that way. We have identified that 4 boats can fit there. It's a suitable condition if you approve it to limit the boats.
I'm sorry, Mike, if it's not a community dock, then where is the overriding public interest?
And then,
Overriding
All right,
public
that's it.
benefit.
I'm not gonna.
yeah,
Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt, but this point has been made several times, several different ways. I want to really, we've been moving along and getting better information, I've been highlighting, and it's been a process that I think has really jumped light years. I think we're getting good information, we truly are. So I would like to
Move on, go ahead.
move on. Yes, please. Russ.
No questions.
Mike,
Boy, I may set you back.
it's okay, that's,
I don't want to spend a lot of time dwelling on statements in Mike's October 28th letter. It's got some mishmash of facts and opinions all rolled into one, and I don't really think it's, most of it is germane to what I'm concerned about. there are several conundrums that's been put up. The first one for me is that we're in well, for the record, I gotta get straight. When I first visited the site as a commissioner to see it and went down, the stairway was unsafe. I don't care, I don't know what happened during Storm Sandy or after Sandy. When I got there, it was an unsafe structure. Now, I'm going to say that as a person, not as an expert, but you don't have to be a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. Don't get down the stairways or you'll break your neck. And if anybody ever asks, that's how it is when I got there. The conundrum before me is, in this case, it appears that as far as the dock is bigger is better for the shellfish. It's a bigger structure. You push it out, it gets all the things, it comes better to our standards in protection of the south, so that's fine. My conundrum associated with that is you're putting a substantial structure in an area that is now a velocity zone. That's changed, it's there. You're going to have those waves. During that 100-year event, the surface is going to take a heck of a beating, and that debris is going to go someplace. So I'm struck with what for my deliberations is that's part of whether it comes back and meets, is whether we're with a smaller structure or the larger structure to meet our own regulations. It's unclear as to whether the dock was carried up the stairs before or after Sandy. We've had both. We've heard both calculations. So and I don't think it means much. It's done. I don't think it comes in, but it just adds to the confusion. Mike says that in the event of an impending storm, the ramp and float can be removed within 24 hours. The question before me isn't can it be, it will be. Will it be? We have the storm coming in and the thing is going to be blown around into the, if you're lucky it's a wetland, and if you're unlucky it's somebody's house. So and I guess I'm finished. It is a conundrum, sir, for me.
Well, it is for us too, because we struggled, frankly, with what to file for this notice of intent. Our clients don't want to go to the cost of building this. And if the commission felt that they were more willing to agree to the smaller dock, that would be something we could do. But we felt that that isn't something we could do strategically at the time. Secondly, I'll point out that this is not in the velocity zone as filed, because this was filed prior to the map changing.
Capiche, I appreciate that, but wisdom has come along. We're going to go with the rules we have, but the fact of the matter is we now believe that the wind will come in a direction which will cause damage. And that's where it is, and we're putting a structure there. And the bigger the structure is, the more damage it can do. F is equal to MA. I mean, and that's part of the conundrum that comes back. A question for Michael, I'm still here. Where's the property line? We're going to have 11 feet off from the property line. Where is the property line?
The only property lines is the sidelines of the road.
In our variance, we state and point to law that the property line in terms of setbacks for zoning doesn't extend out into the water. So the issue that was raised at the last hearing is a red herring. And then I just would like to point out too that there isn't misinformation or mixed messages as to whether those 3 sections of dock were in during Sandy or not. There's multiple affidavits submitted that attest under pain and penalty of perjury that are filed with you that identify the individuals that physically removed the sections into the upland prior to the storm. There's nothing in the record suggesting that those sections were in the water during Sandy.
Mr. McGrath states, however, the stairs were used by Alex Hammer and Bob and Mark Whalen to carry the heavy dock sections after tropical storms Sandy.
Or maybe they were put just at the base.
Just
Oh, they were put at the bottom. The sections were removed, they were put at the bottom, because when it went down, there was an extensive, another reason, Mario, why this is a better environmental design, is that the stairs went down, then down here on top and over a substantial portion of beach, there was a long platform, then the dock went out. The sections of dock prior to Sandy were removed, were replaced on the platform at the bottom. They weren't removed to the upland, but they were removed to the bottom, and they're still in perfect condition. We could go out and use them again tomorrow, if we could. That's just reality. I mean, the pictures show, they're sitting in our client's backyard, and those pictures are in your record.
I'm good.
And John, you're not on the corner.
So I don't get to ask a question.
What would you like to ask, John?
Well, I was just,
John?
Done.
Oh, he can?
Well, at this point in time, I think as the chair, I'm advising him that our quorum is the one that's of interest right now.
Yeah,
and
I'm just saying I don't object, because legally he can ask questions.
And at this point, I'm
That's
still trying to get the board on, I'm still working with the quorum. I want to make sure everybody has.
It's your board.
Thank you so much. Do you understand what I'm saying, John?
I understand.
Okay, thank you. All right. At this point in time, is there any other information from the board? All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Moved.
One moment, this is how all the others have been done tonight.
Move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Okay, there is motion. Mike, second. At this point in time, I'd like to open up to the audience. Is there anyone that would like to comment on this project? If you come up and identify yourself, and we'll get to you. I promise you, everybody that needs to speak will speak.
Good evening. My name is Carol Wayland. I live at 110 Seapit Road. I'm one of the applicants. We've owned our cottage since 1988, along with a number of other property owners. We have a right-of-way on Ferry Road, which is 40 feet wide, which goes to the water. And when I was here last time, I was asked why in all those decades we didn't come before the commission to get a licensed dock, and we responded that, of course, it was, to our understanding, grandfathered. All of us, when we bought our properties, whether it was through Harriet Dugan or Sotheby, were walked down to the shared dock, and it worked harmoniously for several decades, over several generations. We all are taxpayers of Falmouth as well, not waterfront owners, but we are taxpayers. And I have to say, I question the process that happened here. Our families are responsible. They took action before and after the storm in November, but it was in March, apparently, a verbal thumbs up that Mark Thoreau could remove the stairs, and nothing was ever said about the piers. We were not contacted. Nobody ever took the effort to make a phone call to see whether a structure which was obviously used by many people, if the commission had an issue with it, why couldn't we have been contacted? We're responsible people. In one fell swoop, several generations and many people have been affected. Olga's granddaughter was down just a couple of months ago with tears in her eyes, looking at what had been removed and her memories of being there with her grandfather. A couple years before we bought our property, the dock was a little longer than it was after that. And that was because Harold Hatzman, who was a property owner then, threw on another length because he wanted to keep a boat. Denise Kelly objected. She was the grant holder of the shellfish grant down the river. She objected to the commission, to this commission. A commissioner came out, discussed the situation with Denise, with John DiVittorio. They all agreed, take off a section and we're fine with this. So that's what was done. And that's what was my understanding when we bought our cottage. Everybody was fine with it and the neighborhood was in harmony. When that stairway and dock was yanked 2 years ago, might as well have yanked the heart out of the neighborhood. It is just unbelievable to me that the town could countenance that kind of process to homeowners and taxpayers. Questions have been thrown around about liability. We're responsible people. We all have homeowners insurance. As if I'm walking down my own right-of-way, which is a dominant estate over the subservient estate, and if I'm stupidly looking at an osprey and I trip and fall, it's my own fault. But if the subservient owner has left a rake or unexploded fireworks or something in the right-of-way, yes, they would be liable. But we have a homeowner's insurance exactly for that reason. That was never an issue. We raised 3 children who spent their summers at that dock. Both my sons are in the maritime business right now. One's a lieutenant in the Navy, one just graduated from Mass Maritime. Their experiences at that shared neighborhood dock were tremendous. They learned a lot of life lessons from spending summers there. They were responsible kids, and that was a huge part of the value of our property and the other neighbors who used it. We would just like to exercise our property rights to be able to access Waquoit Bay as we have since 1988. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen Monroe. I purchased 26 Ferry Road 3 summers ago. And I disagree. There's no easement on my property. It was sold before all the others, which leaves 20 feet of Ferry Road. So I just want to put that out there. I also want to mention it hasn't been harmonious since I've lived there. I have neighbors cutting my trees down. I have neighbors screaming at me. I have neighbors screaming at my children. So it's just not the picture that is painted anymore. I also want to point out that they were aware, very aware, of the work pulling the stairs and steps out. We were all called. We were all notified. In fact, the Whalens gave the Thoreaus money. So it's just not true. And then when you ask about the overriding benefit to the public, 1/4 of a mile, maybe half a mile away is the town public landing. So that's where the public goes. I'm concerned about the navigation. My boat sticks out from the dock 4 to 6 feet. You're talking about an 11-foot difference. You're talking about kids. I also, when I got up and left here, I was speaking to Todd at the Atlantic Oyster. He is livid and will call Jen in the morning. He does not want his name used. No objection does not mean no support. He wanted to be Switzerland. He has never discussed cohogging. We have given a picture to the board. There are relentless cohoggers conveniently right around where the proposed dock is going. Jen, you just... and in 1 hour, they pulled out 3 baskets. I'm sure I can't question a professional. I can only say what I see. My kids swim there. I swim there. There's no odor. The cohogs are plentiful. And I question whether the harbor master says this is okay. I have tried for months to get in touch with Greg. At one point I did speak with him. He said he talked to Jen. He had told me on the phone he didn't really support this. And I just want to know who, the applicant says Castile, I think it says Wayland, and it says et al. Who is et al.? From what I understand, in this neighborhood, certain people have something called a right-of-way over a portion of Ferry Road. And that could be 4 people, it could be 14 people. I don't know. I'm very concerned about the 4 docks. I'm concerned about these 4 people cannot claim this as their own. And what happens is each neighbor starts coming in. Why do they get to keep their boat? Why can't I keep my boat? Why can't the other people? I mean, I don't even know who these people are because I don't know who et al. Is. So, I don't know. I'm sure you all know, I bought my property 3 years ago. I had a certificate of compliance issue, and the attorney told me I shouldn't buy the property because I really could have problems. The Castiles just bought this property. There is no way that they wouldn't know that that dock was something listed as a deed and title. They talk about in their paperwork it's a hardship and a financial loss. It's not on their deed. It's not a financial loss. It wasn't a legal dock. So, I think that's about it. I guess I just want to reiterate, this isn't a rebuild. It's gone from one person's property to another's.
Did you have Mary?
Could you just indicate in relation to this chart where your property is?
Yep, Karen Monroe, trustee, my peer.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And so Todd said he's going to call you in the morning.
That's fine, Mr. Chairman. I did have a conversation with the Atlantic Oysters after the last full hearing. He did express some concern that his comments were being misconstrued. That's why I corrected them in the record and read his statement to you. I was told he was going to send a letter clarifying his statement and his position, and I did not receive a letter, because I did ask. I will read that letter to you. And so I will have a conversation with the grant holder tomorrow. Never got a letter.
I just want to comment on that because it is an important point. I, again, made it very clear what was submitted was just a statement of no objection. That's it. That's all I've said. I haven't indicated, we haven't indicated that he's supporting anything. It's just no objection.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to comment on this project? Okay. We are now going to take a vote on closing the hearing. There will be no other opportunity to put information in. The hearing will be closed. Is that understood by all here? Okay. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Next is request to amend the existing order of conditions. 13 Ocean Ave, East Falmouth, Mass. Request to amend the existing order of conditions to modify the patio, install stepping stones, mitigation plantings, remove non-native plant material, install native plantings, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Teresa Sprague, Flex Design. I'm also here with Mike Borselli, who put together the site plan for this, and who filed previous, I believe, a previous amendment and the previous notice of intent filing. So basically, I'd just like to, first of all, I'd like to start with one thing. Mr. Corvo, I heard your message this evening about making sure that people who are working on the site are clear and have previous orders of conditions that were issued. And I apologize to the board and to staff if there was some confusion, because something that I realized afterwards was not clear on our plan, and that is work was being undertaken on the walkway to the front door from the driveway, which had been approved under a previous amendment and is not clearly shown as previously approved. It's shown on our plan, but not shown that we are not requesting permission to build that tonight. That was previously approved. In addition, because the mason was out there doing that work, he also began doing some veneer work, basically putting a half-inch thick veneer around this existing raised septic. The work began outside of conservation jurisdiction, but obviously continued into conservation jurisdiction. Again, there's no increase in structure or anything like that. It was simply a veneer being put on the wall. However, that was not clear and has been clarified with the mason. So I just wanted to point that out and apologize.
You don't have to apologize, because I'm going to repeat myself. This is on my little to-do tonight, is no reflection of any of the projects being proposed tonight. This was something that I know people in my own company are watching. So it's kind of just a polite way to refresh people's memories that the orders of conditions
should have been on site.
Coincidentally, and again, this is no reflection on this project or any others presented tonight, that it's just the avenue of communication has been lacking as of late, and that's not, again, directed to this, but to others.
Yes.
Who will definitely comment to me tomorrow.
Understood. Understood. So, having said that, and I apologize if there was confusion with any of the other commissioners that went out to the site to visit. Basically, what we're proposing is to do some additional planting within conservation jurisdiction, and what I'd like to do is just sort of walk around the property sort of counterclockwise. Since the previous request to amend the order of conditions was filed, you know, the FEMA flood maps have changed and the flood line and conservation jurisdiction changed. I believe before almost the entire property was within land subject to coastal storm flowage. That line has actually moved further towards the water. So this portion that's shaded, or that's not shaded, the portion in white is outside of land subject to coastal storm flowage, outside of conservation jurisdiction. However, we are proposing some improvements there, including the veneer on there's a large raised septic in the front yard. The clients, the property owners, wanted to help improve the look of that raised septic, so they are putting a half-inch thin stone veneer on the outside of that wall just to improve the look of that. There's also some invasive species in here. There's some Japanese knotweed, some bittersweet all moving into this area, some overgrown junipers that were actually growing into the street, gray owl junipers, not eastern red cedar trees. We did remove those, and we will be replanting this area. In addition to that, there was some rotting railroad ties out at the edge of the road that were kind of acting as a little bit of retaining for the slope in the front. We are going to be replacing those with granite curbing so that to prevent the rotting issue and sort of hold that area. That's outside of conservation jurisdiction, but just as a way of introduction. In addition to that, if you went out to the site, you probably saw on top of the septic system is basically just a giant weed patch. They'd like to just be able to maintain that as regular lawn on top of the septic system. So we're proposing in this corner to build up the grade so that they can actually push a lawnmower up on top of the septic system and just mow it. Again, that's outside of the land subject to coastal storm flowage, but I just wanted to explain that part of the project. So they'll be regularly mowing the top of the septic area and just maintaining it as Cape Cod lawn. Of course, they would not be adding fertilizers or pesticides or anything to that. It would just be organically maintained lawn area that they'd be mowing regularly to keep neat. So as we move around the property counterclockwise, there are a couple of issues that the clients have asked us to address. I'm going to flip back and forth, so I apologize. So as we move back towards the southern part of the property, there's an area where driveway, I understand, was previously removed. That area is bare now, it's just dirt. we'd like to propose to sort of clean up the soil. It's sort of hard pan right now, so we'd like to dig that out, add some improved soil in there, and actually plant lawn so that that would be vegetated. In addition to that, we'd like to plant some beach plum along the edge of the area to help provide some screening. And we'd like to add some stepping stones in this area. I think the total of the stepping stones is 20 square feet, and that's within zone B. In this area here, underneath the existing deck, it's open. You can see that it's just open dirt. What we're proposing to do is shown here. We're proposing to add some lawn, plant some beach plum, some stepping stones. And then in this area here, that's just a dirt area, we're just proposing to put in a little bit of a lattice screen and add some pea stones so that they continue to use that as storage. They're currently storing their grill, I believe, in that area. As we move further south along the western property line, there are some grasses that line the property boundary. We're just proposing to add some native grasses, Sargassum nutans, to just fill in that area and provide a little bit of a screen in this area here. As we get down to the southern edge of the property, there's an existing seawall. On the landward side of the seawall, there's patchy sand area and some thick rugosa rose. What the client has asked is, and this is a photograph of that right there where the grasses would be added. This is another photograph of that area also. So what the clients have asked us to do was they were having an issue with sand moving through that area and blowing in and onto the lawn. And so when they contacted me and said, what should we, or what can we do about this, my suggestion to them was to let it be what it is and to just provide the sand and put the sand back in there. They were concerned about sand blowing around, and rather than continue to fight that and worry about the quality of the lawn, to actually just let it be what it is. One thing that they did request is they do have grandchildren who play back here, and they have a problem with the balls and things like that getting stuck in the rugosa rose. So what we're proposing to do is remove rugosa rose, nourish that area with about 20 cubic yards of sand, and then replant that area with a mix of dune species, basically American beach grass, stiff aster, sickle-leaved aster, butterfly weed, and bearberry, along with some potentilla, just to add some woody vegetation back into this area. As we continue east along this property, I'm sorry, one thing I wanted to add. The other thing they would like to do is, just to improve the aesthetics of the wall, they would like to add some stucco to the seawall. There's some areas where the seawall is chipping away. Again, no structural changes, just some aesthetic changes, so they'd just like to do some, just redo the stucco that's currently existing on the seawall. So as we move east to this area here, this is a somewhat more challenging area. So this house next door is a rental property, and this is the hot tub for the rental property, and apparently it gets a little boisterous there in the summertime. So they've asked us, there's an existing chain link fence which belongs to this property here. So what they've asked us to do is provide some kind of screening here. We are proposing some beach grass, some bayberry, which would be a mitigation for gravel area, which I'll discuss in a minute, and for those stepping stones that we discussed. So we'd like to plant a line of bayberry along this area here. But we're also proposing to put up a screening fence. And I understand that we're proposing to put up a fence in a velocity zone, and that's a concern. So what we're proposing to do is put up a 32-foot long privacy fence with removable panels. And basically, the panels would be removed using Z-brackets. So that would help provide some privacy, also some wind screening, and also to help allow this bayberry to grow in over time, and the bayberry eventually would provide the majority of the screening here. So basically, they're proposing to do fence panels like this that would be 6 by 6. So they would go into the post with a Z-bracket. The weight of each panel is 30 pounds, so that 2 people could lift the panels up and store them out of the area if they were in the event of a storm. There would be a 6-inch gap minimum underneath the panels, because water does regularly flow through this area, so that it would allow water to flow. But again, they could be removed in the event of a storm. So the other thing that they are also requesting is they have an area in the back of the house that used to be a patio. It's currently bare. Apparently, they've tried to get grass to grow there and have been unsuccessful. They currently keep their grill there now. It's 84 and a half square feet, and they would like to just fill that area in with pea stone so that they can put their gravel, they can put their grill on top of that, and it's not just bare dirt. So for the 84 square feet that we're proposing here and the 20 square feet that we were proposing with these stepping stones, we'd be proposing to plant bayberry along the eastern property line. The total 3-to-1 mitigation for this gravel area, which is in Zone A, and 2-to-1 for those stepping stones in Zone B would be so 253 square feet for the 3-to-1 in Zone A and 40 square feet for the 2-to-1 in Zone B for the Bayberry area. And I cannot find my notes on that right now, but it's on the plan. So I apologize. So basically, we would be proposing 18 Bayberry shrubs, which would equal the square footage for those 3-to-1. We would continue just to plant, say, native grasses this side of the retaining wall would not be veneered. We'd be planting a mix of Sargaster newtons and panic going down the side. The plantings outside of conservation jurisdiction would be a mix of natives and some ornamentals, including hydrangeas and some knockout roses. We'd also like to include an amelanchier on the corner. There's no trees on this site, just to give it a little vertical interest. And then in addition to that, we'd like to just propose some additional foundation planting with some existing hydrangeas, and they would just like to add some perennials and flowering perennials around the foundation. So with that, I know it's been a long night. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jen?
Yes, I'm glad to see Mike's here, because he might have to answer this question for you.
Okay.
That gravel area that you have, that used to be patio?
I think it did used to be the
removed
patio.
So that Mike could get a square footage in the velocity zone? Correct? You originally did this, it was entirely in the velocity zone, Mike, and you were removing that portion of the patio and pervious surface that doesn't support natural vegetation, so that your numbers worked on the addition and the other patio.
Right.
Okay, so now we're putting it back, because it can't get grass to grow there.
But we're offering more mitigation.
But it doesn't meet the reg in the velocity zone that you were trying to meet at the beginning, was it?
When we did the original plan prior to this request for amendment,
I got it right here.
the purpose for removing the patio had nothing to do with
It didn't have anything to do
velocity
with
zone.
the
No,
velocity
I
zone?
wasn't thinking that way because it was an at-grade patio. I was just thinking in terms of trying to balance my impervious surfaces against,
Okay.
you
So if
know.
I read your narrative real quick, that's not going to say that?
No,
Okay.
no. I'm not that quick on my feet to even
Okay.
thought of that.
Okay, and Teresa, my only other question was going to be, did you have the mitigation on those bayberry? Because you said 12, but...
There are, and so I apologize. The square footage is 253.5
Great.
square feet. Yes.
Thank you. The only other concern I have, because I didn't see it on the plan, was they want to stucco the
They do, and that
seawall?
was something that just came up when the mason came out. They asked him to take a look at it, and he said we could just re-stucco. There's some chipped areas, and I don't think I have a close-up of the seawall, but there's just some chipped and damaged areas along the seawall. And he suggested to the client that he could add just a stucco on it to make it look a little neater.
Usually we don't like seeing concrete placed over existing seawalls, obviously, because...
And that's fine.
It doesn't work.
It just came up, literally, it just came up
But if
with
the board doesn't have any
mason.
issues with it, that's
Okay.
fine. It was something that it kind of caught me off guard. I'm looking at this plan going...
It doesn't say it in the
"Is
plan,
that?"
because
Okay.
it was literally just came up and they just...
I mean, you guys are fine with it?
Inside.
Well, no, it could be on the outside exterior too. And my recollection is there's this spalding pieces, smaller sections. It's not like, it's continuous on the
Yeah,
whole
but you know
wall.
what I'm saying. You put concrete or pavement over an existing seawall, it's...
This is an existing, well,
Yeah, it's an existing seawall.
It's part of the structure.
yeah, it's part of the structure. The parging was what was the top coat of the wall. It's like,
Okay.
it was, on the original portion of it, they might have used
Okay.
block, and then they used this to parge over.
Okay, that's fine.
Type of thing.
So just, we have
A veneer. That's what it is.
I can pass actually a picture around so you can take a look and you can see that there's just, it looks like the original stucco that was on the wall is just chipping away.
Yeah, that's fine, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
We're gonna need that for the record.
Okay.
we're gonna need your
Uh,
whole little
that's this-
poster board.
That's just this picture here, so you can see it more closely.
John?
I have no question.
Mike?
The ability to move fences and velocity zones kind of bother me, because they do all around.
Yes.
And wetlands are one thing, but human beings are another. On the other hand, I can understand your quest with rental property next door and
I think so.
people vacationing. I can get there, so.
Yeah,
Would there be objection to conditions for removing, agreeing to move these things in front of stones?
I've talked to the client at length about the need for that, and they've agreed to that, so.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm in a quandary, but that's okay.
No, I understand. I do understand the quandary.
So they're year-round residents then?
They are not entirely year-round residents. They are there most of the time. They do maintain a condo up in Milford, I think.
So who would take care of the fence, we'll say, when they're gone for 3 or 4 months, or, whatever
Yeah,
period of
so-
time?
so
Would it
John-
remain in place, or?
No, John Maxwell, who's the property owner, would be responsible for that, and with his brothers, but that's a good question. I mean, if someone would have to come to the property to remove the fence.
But,
so-
I'm just thinking
I
if they were,
do. Yeah.
gone for an extended period of time, 3 months, we'll say, it might be
Right.
a good idea if we condition that to be removed or stored or whatever.
I would just add this, the fencing is for when people are in the hot tub and making noise next door on vacation, and that can be during hurricane season, no doubt about it, but at the end of the season, like when people shut down their summer homes, board them up or whatever they do, shut the water off, all that stuff, this would be one of those tasks that they do. They take the panels and they store them. That would be that kind of routine.
Yeah, they just didn't want 3 months to go by and they were still up, and we've had numerous storms,
Right.
so.
I think it would be perfectly reasonable to condition that they be removed at the end of the summer season and stored and then put back up. They're definitely, they do visit the house during the winter, but they're not sitting out here trying to enjoy the yard during the winter season or even hurricane season.
I'm all set, thank you.
I'm also not a big fan of doing things because of the current people who live there.
Right.
So, that's all.
Okay.
All set?
I'm all set, yes.
All right.
Nice planting plan as usual by Blue Flax. I particularly like getting rid of that monoculture of Rosa rugosa and planting some nice diverse stuff in there. That's really great. This has nothing to do with anything, but the masonry work. Did anyone see the masonry work around that raised system? It was a work of art. I watched them.
It was really hard to.
I think that's really great. People can still do things with their hands like that.
It's,
Wonderful job.
the mason's head just expanded.
It's funny because Seth, I've worked with him before on other job sites, and he's a phenomenal mason, and I didn't even expect that I could get his time to come look at this wall, and I found out that he was available, so asked him to come look at it, and he said, we can get started and do the walkway, and I knew the walkway was previously approved, so I said, please, yes, start the walkway. I didn't want to lose him, and he's amazing. So.
I had a pretty pleasant conversation with the homeowners too, and I got a fairly strong comfort level with Mr. Maxwell.
Yes.
His brother from Chicago was an interesting gentleman to talk to. But the kid thing was genuine, because as I was there, another family member came up with a youngster who had to use the facilities right away, but then the next thing you know, they're out front kicking the ball, and it's a very active yard when the small people are there.
Yes, absolutely.
So I can appreciate ripping the Rosa finger stabbers out of there. So if we have enough information,
Make a motion to close the hearing and take it on advisement.
Second?
okay, we have a motion and a second. That'll be Mike's motion, Mary's second. Is there any other comments from the board? Are there any comments from the audience? Outside of the fact that we need to have your,
I need to post the board too.
Okay, yep, I'm going to see if there's a-
outside of that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Now, glasses on. Continued request for hearing under an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. 96 Old Main map, North Falmouth. Request for confirmation of the following wetland resource area boundaries, bordering vegetated wetland and 2 isolated vegetated wetlands and isolated land subject to flooding.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we're waiting for a DEP number which we received.
Move to close this and take it under advisement.
Second.
Mary's motion and Mike's second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. And we have one to vote.
Next week.
We're going to vote that next week. You know what that means? I need a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second that.
That was Mary's motion, and pick your choice on either end. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you.